Paulie TV live, Bensonhurst edition, Brooklyn, Bensonhurst. We're here at Cafe Sportivo on 18th Avenue and 75th Street, doing the thing. Coffee in combat. I got my coffee, but I just drank it, unfortunately, so I'm not gonna be sipping it. We got no coffee left, and I'm already
combat and coffee live.
What's going on? We're coming live. Are we live? We're live, right?
Yeah, we're live. How has your week been, Paulie?
How's everything going? Fight. It's good. I'm still getting over that Spence Crawford ordeal. I was such a spectacular performance on the part of Crawford that I'm still in shock from it. But coming down from that high of watching that crazy fight, hopefully Spence is all right. He's gonna be all right. And Crawford is super impressive. We got Jake Paul and Diaz coming up over the weekend. It's a big deal, no? I mean, I know some of the hardcore boxing fans don't like it, but the casuals like it. Are we casuals because we're into it? Does that make us casuals?
I mean, I'm
into it, bro. I'm into it.
His YouTube has 15 million more subscribers than all the biggest boxing promotions combined. So I don't know if that's casual.
The YouTubers have the 15 million followers.
Just Jake Paul.
Wow. I mean, that speaks for itself. If that doesn't speak for itself, I don't know what's gonna speak for itself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We say over here, you know what I mean, kid? You know?
No, I mean.
Yeah, what's going on?
I wanted to start with what has been the one thing stuck in your head since that fight. The relative ease with which Crawford handled it. I mean, it was smooth boxing. It was almost like wasn't in a big fight. He fought so relaxed, like it wasn't even a big fight. And he just took Spence apart little by little, like it was a sparring session at the gym. I mean, that was really impressive. Like it seemed like he never felt the pressure, even the walkout with Eminem and all that other stuff. I mean, it was really impressive, you know. I was gonna ask you, do you remember that who you fought Cotto when you walked out to the same song?
Yeah. I came out to that song against Miguel Cotto. That was when it first came out, or around that time anyway, a couple of years before. That song is timeless. One of our top comments was after Eminem walked out with Crawford, the fight was over. You walked out to lose yourself with Cotto. What did you think of Shady walking out? I mean, you come out with Eminem. I thought it was cool, you know, and I thought it was interesting the way it came about. They were just from a social media post, right? I mean, and then Eminem was like, "Yo, you're one of my favorite boxers." And you see, that's what I mean. Eminem didn't perform it; he just walked them out. He said at the beginning, which tells you this was a last second thing because it wasn't really set up like that. It just came from my social media post, and all of a sudden it was just done, you know. So it wasn't really a rehearsed entrance. It was just like a spur of the moment thing, which actually for me made it cooler, more organic, you know. Nothing, no fireworks, none of that. It was just Eminem coming out. He said the beginning of the beginning lyrics of the song, and that's it. You just walk out. Crawford really knees weak, palms are sweaty, vomit on his sweat already, right? I mean, it was that moment of nerves, but he came out throwing bombs.
So NCal Treeman 830s was shocked. One of the best performances I've ever seen. Was that one of the best performances you've ever seen?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Because these kind of fights, you don't expect such one-sided beatings, and you also don't expect such dominant performances. You give credit to both guys for getting into doing the fight like that, and then all of a sudden, one guy dominates so much over the other guy. It's like, wow. It's like, so this guy's really something else, you know. And then a stoppage, you know. People have started right away. It's natural. People started talking about, could this guy have beaten Mayweather? It's not. I think he's earned the conversation. I think it's very hard to pick against Mayweather against anybody because I really rate Mayweather, but I think Crawford has earned the conversation. And you know what happens? I'll tell you what happens. When you get stoppages, it sticks out more in people's minds. You become more dangerous in people's minds, and people kind of want to root for you more. It's kind of a natural thing with boxing fans, you know. So Crawford is in a big, major fight, in a very dangerous fight, and he got the stoppage. So really, I think it's made him a sort of a fan favorite, even among the hardcore purists who go back and won't tell you anybody into modern day will compete with old school days. You know, Crawford, I think, has gained the respect even by those people's standards, and that's not easy. Tell me what's up.
So you mentioned the Floyd Mayweather versus Crawford. How'd you break that fight down just real quick?
I mean, I can't just go out and say, you know, Mayweather fought a lot of different styles. Mayweather's resume is much bigger. You know, Crawford looked amazing, but it's against one guy. You know what I'm saying? And he's done amazing things in his whole career, but his resume is not as big as Mayweather's. We've seen Mayweather against literally every kind of style, you know. So it's hard to randomly pick against Mayweather. But again, I think Crawford has earned the
accolades to be in the conversation. Like there's certain guys who don't even belong in that conversation. We match him with Floyd, right? Crawford has earned the accolades to be in that conversation, and that's important.
People in the chat are talking about Boots and Crawford. What do you think about that? Is Boots the guy?
It happens. I think it's all risk, no reward for Crawford. I think Crawford has just reached another different level of stratosphere. If he's going to take on a guy like that, who's an up and comer with not a big name, but a promising guy, he's probably going to do it at 154 pounds. I would say somebody like a Tim Tszyu before a guy like a Jaron Ennis, because I don't think he's going to stay at 147 pounds anyway. While Tim Tszyu, on the other hand, is just been awarded the WBO light middleweight title as Jamel got stripped. So automatically it's going to create a world title fight for Crawford at the new weight class against a relatively well-known guy in the weight class who's ascending and not descending, and he's from a different country, so he brings a different fan base. Plus, Tszyu has the Tszyu name. His father was a terrific fighter. I think that fight makes a lot of sense, and I think Tszyu's a really good fighter. So I don't think it's an easy fight, but Crawford right now, he's flying high. I mean, I don't know that you'd pick anybody to beat him at the moment. And although I was wrong, I want everybody to let everybody know I was wrong in picking the winner. But guys, I also caught a lot of shit for having having Crawford as my number one pound for pound the whole time. I think I deserve a little bit of credit for not removing Crawford as my number one pound for pound, despite some of the inactivity, despite some of the not going up or raising his level of competition in all the fights, not getting all the big fights like Spence had done, not removing him as my number one pound for pound. I think I deserve some credit. I'm gonna pat my own back here. I might have lost the prediction in the fight, but I'm gonna pat my own back in fighting for the fact that Crawford deserves to be number one, and now that statement sort of holds true and is emphatically confirmed,
You still got some heat for it regardless, because it seems like you're playing both sides. Like if you lost, you were able to say, hey, I still am as the number one pound for pound fighter.
Well, I was playing both sides, but it wasn't by design. It was,
because nobody really knew what was going to happen.
Yeah, of course.
So what's next for these guys? What's next for Spence? What do you want to see Spence do? You saw the Stephen A. Smith thing?
I think Spence also moves to 154. Unfortunately, I think we're going to get hit with the boxing politics of everything. And because this fight, these guys, what they like to do is steal the money now. And what they do is they sign 2-fight deals even before they fight one fight. So unfortunately, what ends up happening is whether you have a good fight or not, guys end up rematching anyway. And that's seems like that's where we're going to be headed here. I think they're not talking about it as much, but you kind of sort of hear the rumors through the grapevine that Crawford and Spence may fight again at the end of the year, early next year. And that was because they had signed a 2-fight deal. So unfortunately, I think they steal the money in that way, because I think this fight was so emphatic. I don't think you need a rematch. Yeah, whether 154 or not,
Mateo Pentagelli says the champ is here. What up, Paulie?
What's up, Mateo?
Taro 78 says greetings from Amsterdam, Costa Rica, Amsterdam, New York. We're worldwide. So Flip Spearing said Crawford's job looks strong like GGG's. Did you see a similarity?
Yeah, he did have a heavy jab. You could tell it was really bothering Spence. Besides the fact that he knocked him down with it, it was really bothering. But I'll tell you what, he's a natural righty. I mean, you could tell that the power he had in that right hand, the sense of timing, the power, even on the simple jab, and also those catch and shoot right hooks. Those catch and shoot right hooks that will happen a few times when Spence threw the overhand left and Crawford was blocking it like this and then shooting right around with the hook. I mean, he did some real damage, those catch and shoot right hooks. I mean, I wish somebody at Showtime would have actually mentioned that, on that commentary team that is severely lacking since I've left. But because you need to bring out something like that. That was a very, very well done it was one of the major weapons Crawford was using, was that catch and shoot high guard. When Spence was using that overhand left, because it felt like Spence almost prepared to throw that overhand left at times, because sometimes Crawford stands up a little too high on the inside and gets hit, like Kavalowski has hit him. So it's almost like Spence was planning to use that punch, and Crawford was prepared defensively better this time around. Also, it seemed like Spence was a little out of his element on the inside against the southpaw. He was trying to smother, and he was not able to. He kept leaving room for Crawford to land some heavy, heavy blows on the inside. And it was because I think he was trying to smother, but he's used to fighting right-handers, where smothering a right-hander is a bit different. Sort of, with like a right-hander. I remember I used to have trouble smothering left-handers when I would fight them, because I wasn't used to fighting the left-handers. Well, for a lefty, it's the same thing. He's used to fighting right-handers, so he's used to smothering right-handers if he has to. But when he has to fight another left-hander, it becomes a little bit awkward for him. And because Crawford fought the whole fight in the southpaw stance, you could see at times Spencer sort of trying to step in to smother, and he winds up catching air, and he winds up, getting hit with hooks and uppercuts, and then kind of just stepping into punches, and Crawford really, really played it very well, very intelligently.
EU is saying, how can you train to be better to switching to southpaw?
How can you train to be better switching to southpaw? I mean, that takes a long time. I'll tell you what it is. I think a lot of fighters can throw punches from both stances. It's your ability to defend out of the secondary stance. You cannot fight in a secondary stance unless you're able to defend. Most fighters can throw punches out of both stances, but they don't fight out of both stances because defensively, your natural instincts all of a sudden have to change to the opposite side, and you're not trained that way. So, like for me, I could hit a bag lefty. I could throw punches lefty, but I can't defend as well lefty. And so when you see guys who can fight both ways, it's because they've learned how to defend from the opposite stance as well. And that's what Crawford does. Crawford's very good offensively and defensively from both stances.
How would you think he fares against an 80s Duran or Hagler or Hearns?
I mean, Hagler was a middleweight. It's a bit too big. But again, it's what goes back to what I said before. I think Crawford's earned his way into the conversation with the career he's had and the win he just had. I think now you could put him in the conversation against the all-time greats and have fantasy matchups. That's all they'll ever be. Obviously, there'll never be a right answer to those kind of questions.
Bat Hero Man 25 is kept asking, Paulie, how did you calm down and get sleep before big fights?
How did I calm down? I don't know. It was just like a focus. You know what I would do? I would have sets of music. At the time, it was CDs because it was like we didn't have MP3 players started coming out late in my career, and but
the Walkman.
But we had Walkmans and DVD players, portable DVD players. I'll put in my headphones, and in the days leading up to a fight, personally, I would listen to kind of slow jams, old school 80s music or R&B or just even some love songs. That wasn't so much for me to get into a soft mode. It was like that mental dropping me, you know what I'm saying? And then fight day, I would keep headphones all day unless I was sleeping, and it would be hardcore hip hop, it would be fight music, that kind of. Actually, there's a song by D12 fight music, which I used to actually have on my headphones, as well as other kinds of songs like that, which would kind of raise my intensity for the upcoming fight that was coming on that day or night, So that's how I kind of stayed calm and then made a 180-degree turn. I used music. For me, music was very important to my inner stability or inner rage. It would trigger certain thoughts in my head. But everybody has their different methods.
What's your favorite Eminem song?
My favorite Eminem song is probably. And at this point, I haven't listened to Eminem in a while. So probably Lose Yourself, but that's sort of more commercialized. If I had to say another song with Eminem, let's see, man.
Not the one where he mentions you.
It's not going to be Shade 15, because although I'm in that song, I wasn't really a fan of that song, even though you mentioned me. But I don't know, man. That album, when he had Lose Yourself, was on the 8 Mile soundtrack. There was some good songs there too. There was Run Rabbit Run that I liked on that soundtrack, and there was one more song on that soundtrack that I liked from Eminem. But the album where he had you know what? That album where he had around the early 2000s, there was some good songs on it. America, White America.
Yeah, White America's good.
Was like a rage song, one
of your kids.
Yeah, and there was a few good songs on that album I remember that I enjoyed. It was sort of again, rage music, It was it was like inner anger music. I used to listen to a lot of Tupac and Eminem in those days, to flip my mind into fighting,
Any final thoughts on this matchup before we head to Jake Paul?
Any final thoughts on what?
On Spencer Crawford.
That's it. I mean, that's it. We'll see how they come about. I hope there's no rematch. That's my final thought. But I think I'm wrong. I think there's going to be a rematch. I hope there's no rematch. I don't want to see a rematch. I think Spence needs a mid-range comeback opponent, and I think Crawford should fight for a world title against somebody like a Tim Tszyu or something.
Okay, cool. Well, with that being said, tomorrow night we have Jake Paul versus Nate Diaz. Jake Paul is going back to his formula, which is boxing retired MMA fighters, but Nate Diaz is a little different.
Yeah, Nate has had some hand skills in the past. He's been known for his hand skills, unlike some of the other MMA fighters that Jake has fought in the past. I do think that it's a well-timed situation for Jake. I think Nate is on the decline. I also think obviously Nate is a little bit physically smaller, but he does have better hand skills than the other guys he's fought, aside from Tommy Fury. So, it does leave a little bit of curiosity for you. I think it's a brilliant matchmaking job done by his team. But I think Nate is, the continued improvements. I mean, the continued improvements Jake has made, I think ultimately bring him out on top, and if he was able to knock out Nate, who was very, very tough, it would be a big statement, but I think Jake wins. I don't know if he stops him, but I'm going to be looking because Jake looks to throw with bad intentions. It will be interesting to see if he could stop Nate. Nate is smaller. He's a little bit shot. He's tough as hell though. So it's going to be interesting.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. I think it's the toughest guy he's fought by
and
far.
He's not just tough because he takes it. He's tough because he gets mad when you hit him and he fights back. Like, he'll Stockton slap you, So
yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. You got to consider Stockton in all of this.
Yeah. So it's so I think, again, generally speaking, I think it's very, very curious, It's a curious moment.
And we haven't seen Jake get knocked down yet, which is still the interest, which I think a lot of people, they tune into fights. They want to see him get knocked down.
One thing about that, though, it's difficult to get knocked down when you haven't fought guys your size, right? So that's, the power factor is going to come into play. I think eventually you fight long enough that you'll be end up off the canvas at a certain point, and find yourself in that situation. It happens to most of us. At a certain point in our careers, but nonetheless, he's taking his first L and then now he's rebounding nicely. As far as seeing Jake knocked down and how he deals with a knockdown, I mean, I don't know, until he fights guys who are more his size, I don't think you're going to see that. But nonetheless, he's just still dangerous in their own right. So it's again, this is a guy who hasn't had the amateur career that other people have had. So he sort of has to do the developmental stages right in front of us. It's not as easy to do it as some other people who can kind of go through the mistakes of the amateurs in little small gymnasiums because nobody knows them and they have to build up their name little by little. Jake has started boxing in a situation where he's already a big name. So he's unfortunately his development has to come right in front of us. It's fortunate and unfortunate because it's good and bad about that.
I mean, arguably the most popular American boxer of my generation in terms of overall reach. I'd say it's my age. But I wanted to ask you, what do you think he could take from the Tommy Fury fight and implement into this fight that he didn't use? Mine was footwork.
Yeah, major is the footwork. He's got to glide into range when he throws that right hand behind the jab, but I don't think he's going to be dealing with the footwork in Nate Diaz. He's an MMA fighter. MMA guys have sort of the kickboxing footwork, so they're not as glidey on their feet as boxers can be. Tommy was more gliding on his feet, and so Jake would step in, and then Tommy would kind of glide away, and he was reaching with that right hand behind the jab. I think it's something you work on nonetheless, even if you're not going to see as good a footwork out of Nate as you would have with Tommy. It's something you should have worked on so that when you're able to, and you can work on it even in this fight to see how you improved in it. But ultimately, it's something that, the constant work you'll have done will eventually show itself maybe in a Tommy Fury rematch or if he fights another boxer.
Since Nate, I feel like he's always had something to prove in his fights. As an older fighter who came back a few times like yourself, what was on your mind after a long layoff or not being your former self? Honestly,
it was never really like, honestly, I had one comeback in a bare knuckle fight, but aside from that.
Was the Danny Garcia fight not kind of
Yeah, it was a comeback after a bad concussion though. So that was kind of different. That was interesting because I had gotten cut right before that camp. I was training for another fight on the Khan versus Algeria card, and then I got cut like a week. I was co-main event on that card, and then I got cut like a week or 2 weeks before the fight. And then I got the Danny Garcia fight offered to me like a few weeks later, and I was still, just out of stitches, so I couldn't really spar a lot. So it was very interesting how we had to approach that camp because it was 7-figure payday, and we didn't want to really blow it by getting cut in camp again. So. I mean, I guess it wasn't like a mean streak type of camp. It was more like and maybe that was where I went wrong, looking back, maybe it was more like a don't get injured kind of camp, because you haven't fought in a year and then this is good money, And so you kind of train not to get injured as opposed to training to fight a killer, which Danny was. And of course, the results showed. Danny was in a good point in his career. He had just been a unified 140-pound champion who was moving up to 147. So, it was what it was. Timing in life is everything.
And Al Heyman, right?
Yeah, of course. But it was. But as far as the bare knuckle fight, that was kind of cool because that was more like, okay, I had a mean streak. It was about, it was I actually trained to win the fight. Then I just broke my hand and I had to adjust my boxing in the fight, which honestly, man, the only shame about that fight is that, we had idiot judges and an idiot fan base and an idiot media covering it because, all the boxing websites had me winning the fight. Anybody who watched, who understood boxing had me winning the fight. And it was like, I had to fight in a highly cerebral way because I couldn't fight in a killer way because I broke my hand so early in the fight. And the cerebral way I fought, I showed myself like, well, I can still box very well here. I can still box off the jab very well and step out of range and just control the distance. And I was actually impressed with myself. It was, but unfortunately, I was like showing you like trigonometry to a class of retards. So it was like a waste, and that's sort of where we went wrong,
What's your prediction for this fight when you first heard it and now?
I thought Jake was gonna come out on top. I still believe that. I think Jake comes out on top, and I think Jake can build himself into maybe a Conor McGregor fight. Conor McGregor is everybody's punching bag, and at this point, he's really searching high and low for fights where he'll be competitive with someone. And I think he views Jake as somebody who's, obviously his combat experience is not as much, and maybe it gives him a chance to be competitive. But again, Conor McGregor is a poor MMA fighter, let alone boxer. He was always a poor boxer, but now he's a poor MMA fighter too. So I think it'd be interesting though, because it would still set up a good promotion. I think Jake would knock the shit out of him anyway, but it would still set up the possibility of something happening. So I think this is an important fight for Jake in terms of the way he looks because Nate has a win over Conor. Let's not forget. And even in the rematch where Conor got the decision, it was very, very 50-50 up in the air. So, if Jake emphatically beats Nate, even in a boxing match, it still kind of brings some momentum into a possible beef with Conor, who at this point can only really beat up mascots and old men at bars.
He got his first knockout in 2 years. Yeah. So what's your take? I have Jake by decision. I think it's going to go the distance.
I'm going to say Jake. I'm going to say Jake late stoppage. I think he's too big. I'm going to say Jake late stoppage. And I think Nate's tough. I think Nate will react. But I think Nate is also too brave for his own good. He'll keep fighting even when he's hurt and stuff like that. I think Jake stops him. I think Jake gets late stoppage. Yeah, I think Jake gets late stoppage. Is this 8 rounds again or is this 10 rounds?
I think this is 8 still.
I'm going to say 7th round. Nate Diaz. I mean, 7th round. Jake Paul. Jake Paul wins 7th or 8th round.
Here's the real question, MT. If Jake beats Nate, does he deserve a chance with Beetlejuice?
Dude, that's tough, man. I mean, you got to probably if I beat, I don't know, but we can talk to beat. We got to get beat on the show one of these days. We got to talk to beat and want to see what he thinks about, the whole Jake Paul fiasco and the Nate Diaz fiasco and the Conor McGregor fiasco and all that, Jake goes, Beat goes back a long way. He was in the ring with me for some of my fights, Beat goes back a long way. He was in the gym with me. Oh, it is 10 rounds. All right. So I'm going to say stoppage. I mean, 7th, 8th, maybe 9th round for Jake. It's 10th round. 10 rounds is even more impressive. But yeah.
I mean, he's moving his way up in rounds and fights. I mean, 10 is no joke, right?
Yeah, one of these days we got to get beat on for a prediction show. We'll see.
Yeah. I was talking to Bobby a few months ago for you. All right, with that, so our decision, you have him by late stoppage. Let's go to a couple of Twitter questions to wrap this up, and let me get those set up real quick. Sorry, guys, I'm working on Island time. I guess 10 Central America time. Paulie Malinaji, I'm trying to become a manager with advertising and sponsorship background, and I'm licensed in Nevada. What's the anatomy of a fight agreement like?
The anatomy of a fight agreement, from a management side, it's obviously got a percentage split, but you got to see management contracts are tricky because there's managers that will try to stipulate that they get a piece of everything, but I don't believe managers deserve a piece of everything unless they're working in everything. Like if you're a boxing manager and then you're not getting me any other, you're not producing any other type of endorsement deals or other things, and I don't believe you deserve that kind of split of any endorsement deals that I may acquire. But I believe that a good management deal will have a split from fights. That split from fights comes once the fighter starts fighting 10 rounds and not before that, because before that it's more so, he got to keep some of his own money. But also, I think that any endorsement deals you bring then there is a cut that's taken by you. But if you don't bring endorsement deals, I think the fair thing is not to take that cut, for any endorsement deals you don't bring. So it's kind of tricky. Every situation is a little bit unique. And of course, building up a network is very, very important. If you're a manager or a promoter in boxing, you build up a network, build up friendships and networking with major players in the industry, or just players in the industry at first, and then as you work your way up to the major players in the industry, because these are the people you're gonna need and make deals with in order to help your fighter get along and go more up the ladder as well.
Oh, that was from John Fairbanks Jr. Rich Giovanni is asking Sugo or gravy?
Sugo, easily. Sugo easily. I mean, gravy is basically, the people that call it gravy basically are just Americanize the word. You know what I mean? It's sugo. I mean, you know what it is? I guess if you speak in English, like I'm not one of these people that will be hardcore about this. I'll tell you this, because it's not sauce or gravy, it's sugo or gravy, because sauce is its own thing. Sauce, you can make a red sauce with nothing else in it, and you can't call it gravy and you can't call it sugo, right? Sugo is it's condiment. It's got like condiments in there, like meat, potatoes, or whatever, sausage, whatever. My family, we put spare ribs in there as well, like a lot of things, meatloaf. It can be varied, but nonetheless, sugo is basically, when you're speaking Sicilian or when you're speaking Italian, you're going to use the word sugo. I guess the people that stopped speaking Italian but still continued to make that recipe wound up calling it gravy, because now you basically turned the word into an English word because you've not progressed along with the language. In my family, we called it sugo, but then again, in my family, we all spoke Sicilian and Italian. So we weren't speaking in English. So you weren't speaking in English. You weren't speaking into Italian or Sicilian and then using the word gravy. I mean, that wouldn't really match. But we were speaking in Italian and Sicilian, so we was the word sugo. But I think the people that call it gravy are pretty much the people that stopped speaking Italian but continued to use the recipe, so they had to kind of Englishize the word. That's my conclusion with that.
Sugo or gravy? Okay, I had no idea what sugo was before this, so that was a good
question.
For me.
They're all types of sauces, but the gravy, you can call it gravy, sugo, but it's all different, but there's also like a generic red sauce, tomato sauce that you make out of tomatoes that you jar up. You don't call that sugo or gravy. That's our salsa. You know what I mean? That's pasta with sauce. But red sauce.
We got two more. Carl Brandt, who is the most underrated heavyweight right now? You brought up Zhang.
I don't know. I guess there might be an underrated heavyweight that I'm not mentioning, right? I mean, I don't know. And if there was somebody that was underrated, maybe I possibly wouldn't mention him. I don't know. Maybe Zhang. Say Zhang. Zhang's fun.
That's what he said. That's what Carl Brandt said. And then last one for me. Why did you shave your beard?
Why did I shave my beard? Sometimes you gotta oxygenate your face a little bit. You know what I mean? It's already growing back though. I may keep shaving it. I may. You know what? I don't know. I gotta think about it. I gotta give it some thought. We'll see.
When's your next show?
Next show is this coming week. I'm working Pro Box TV, Wednesday Night Fights, August the 9th, Artur Aronosian against Roger Gutierrez. It's a WBA 130-pound world title eliminator. Two very good action-packed fighters. One guy's 13-0, one guy's 27-4. I'm telling you, it's a good matchup, even style-wise. We make good fights at Pro Box TV. Check us out on Wednesday Night Fights every 2 Wednesdays. It's a really, really fun fights. It's the equivalent of the old Friday Night Fights. I'm telling you, the matchups may be even better. I'm telling you, we got good, fun fights on Wednesday Night Fights. And then the next day, on the 10th, I'm actually working BYB Bare Knuckle. That's on beIN Sports. BYB Bare Knuckle now got picked up by beIN Sports. I'm commentating that on August the 10th. So on the 9th and 10th, I'm working shows.
When are you going to be in LA again?
LA for TCL. August 19th. TCL for the finals on the 20th. I'll be commentating the finals on the 20th.
And you're going to be in Long Beach?
Long Beach, yeah. Long Beach.
LBC, a lot of drama. Drama.
Long Beach. It's funny. My house in Long Island is in Island Park, which is right next to Long Beach, Long Island. I didn't realize that, there's a Long Beach, California. Well, I did realize that actually, because the West Coast rappers used to mention it, like Snoop Dogg back in the day. But
Snoop Dogg, the LBC.
Yeah. Nonetheless, I'm close to Long Beach, New York. I don't know
I
about
guess
Long Beach, California.
they have a Roscoe's, and they have the biggest.
I had a
porch.
Roscoe's when I was in LA. It was a Roscoe's not far from me in Hollywood. I ate there once or
We'll
twice.
get it. Hey, when you're in town, we'll get it. How about that?
But I'm staying in LA Live. Is there one close to LA Live?
You're saying LA Live, but you're going all the way down to Long Beach?
Yeah, that's where they put me.
Wow, they got you communal 110. Yeah, there's like 8 over LA, but yeah, we'll figure it out. All right, Polly, I'm in Costa Rica. I'm gonna go back and meet up with the boys.
All right,
but thanks for hopping on. We got
Yo,
Jake.
have fun
Jake
out there, man. I've been out there. It's a good time.
Yeah. All right,
and keep an eye out for a couple of houses and apartments because we might have to ditch this shindig over here in the United States pretty soon if it keeps going the way it's going. All right.
I mean,